It is a project undertaken by the AEMASE network of science academies in partnership with La Main à la Pâte Foundation in France, IEP, and its Global Science Education Program, the All European Academies Science Education Working Group, and the Network of African Science Academies. So, before going ahead, I would like to thank all members of the steering committee who did a wonderful job during the preparation of this conference. My equal thanks also to Anne Andiverio, Sophia Lajat, and Jackie Hollande for their crucial role in the successful organization of this meeting. What does the education play such a major role in our mission? The fourth Sustainable Development Goal for 2015-2030 of the United Nations calls for inclusive and equitable quality education for all. And it comes right after poverty, hunger, and health issues, because the quality of education contributes very much to human social development. And the very name, CESAME, of the present project sounds like the little sesame seeds and is symbolic of the renewal and organized life that a seed bears within itself. What about the science education? Science education, taking the word science in the broad sense of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the so-called STEM, promotes a broad education by the acquaintance with scientific methods, approaches, and contents. It is a strong asset for building up and maturing the curiosity, intelligence, imagination, rigor, rationality, critical thinking, self-confidence, democratic debating, and humanistic values of the next generation. And why do we need a renewal of science education? This topic is today the focus of great attention in the north-south axis of Africa, the Mediterranean and Europe. All experts, most of them, agree that science is often inadequately taught in schools, hence not raising the interest of pupils. So science education requires a profound renewal. A sound science education is a robust cornerstone for human and social development as well as for democracy. So renovating science education is thus an important part of SDG 4 objectives and will impact in a positive way on many of the other SDGs. Now, why do we expect from the improvement of science education in this region? A better science education is a powerful tool to improve development and society welfare, and at the same time to sustain economies. It increases the scientific knowledge of students and contributes to the number of young people deciding to choose studies which will allow them to enter scientific careers in the north as well as in the south, and particularly in the south. And an increased number of scientists, engineers, and technicians will help in the fight against climatic, environmental, and other global challenges. And eventually, it will allow everywhere a healthy and sustainable development and improve the standards of living. What does this renovation contain? This renovation has already been undertaken by many pilot projects worldwide under the name of inquiry-based science education, especially with the support of the European Commission. In these pedagogies, students are encouraged to actively participate in classes, to carry on scientific experiments. Their competencies in reasoning, in debating, are developed while their disciplinary knowledge is increased. As said by Pierre Léna, we need to make students to be agents to change. So they become actors in the self-learning, training. IBSC has strong positive effects on student learning and can be used as a method to renovate science education. These projects were often initiated and supported by science academies and their members. It is one of our fundamental missions to help, to influence science education in our countries in order to offer possibilities to combine theories and practice to acquire new skills for technological innovation path in school. So IBSP has been widely promoted by science academies through the inter-academic partnership, which has set up a global science education program in 2003. And then a network of academies of science called AEMASE, African, European, Mediterranean Academies for Science Education, was launched in 2013 from the Science Education Working Group of the European Network, ALEA, and from the African NASAC, Network of African Science Academies Initiative. All members of AEMASE Academies are members of IAP. They were focused on the IBSC pedagogy, especially in primary and middle schools. What are the objectives of the CESAME project? Under the guidance of the Intercontinental Steering Committee presented above, the project aims at establishing the concept and a network of Center for Education in Science for Africa, the Mediterranean in Europe, CESAME. And the objective of children developing their personality and humanity is pursued in the CESAME project via IBC dissemination in school in this region, in particular through the professional development and training of teachers dealing with science and of their educators to help them practice an IBSC pedagogy. The specific targets is the creation of collaborative and intercontinental education support systems throughout the AEME region in partnership with scientists. What is new? This empowering and personal development of teachers is not to be achieved through top-down formal lecturing, but as a co-construction by partnerships between trainees, teacher educators and teachers, and scientists, with face-to-face personal contacts and activities, as well as on distance follow-up activities. So the trainees are usually educators of polyvalent teachers in pre-elementary and elementary schools, or of more specialized science and mathematics teachers in middle and high school. They can also be teachers themselves. And the scientific partners can be faculty members, scientists, engineers, and technicians, as well as motivated graduate and PhD students in all areas of science. And what are the activities in CESAME centers? A CESAME center will work the year around and gather for short workshops each year 2 kinds of participants, all from various countries and continents. On the one hand, teacher educators plus some local teachers will become trainees. On the other hand, practicing scientists, technicians, and pedagogic educators will be their trainers. And during these CESAME workshops, the teacher educators will refresh their scientific knowledge and get acquainted with the IBSC pedagogy. So they will exchange best practice in science during this meeting. They will gain an expertise behind the mere transfers of an outer know-how. And with the trainers, they will jointly explore the beauties of science within its various fields, the scientific ways of reasoning, the IBSC pedagogy. And how will the training teachers be followed? When at home, adapting to the various school levels, primary, middle, and high school, teacher educators will be equipped to implement IBSC, while continuing to receive support from the distance CESAME. So there will be constant interaction between trained teachers and the center's activities. The above model has been successfully experimented in France. Maison pour la science au service des professeurs, Science 2012, handling nearly 8,000 teachers every year. And in the UK, National Science Learning Centers since 2006. A CESAME center can be the result of the organized network of participating laboratories, universities, organisms, and of innovating technical enterprises. Where can a CESAME center be established? The site where a CESAME center will be established should offer adequate facilities in order to ensure a collaborating companionship among all participants, scientists, teachers, and teacher educators, and pedagogy educators, many of whom will come from far away. And each CESAME initiative should have the strong support of the official educational system of the corresponding country. So it is very important for the local authorities to be involved in to support the CESAME center they host. The contact and exchange between the scientific and educational worlds that usually do not know much of each other will be an important original characteristic of CESAMEs in comparison with the traditional faculties of education, which the centers would nevertheless not ignore. and who attend the CESAME Center activities and how do they interact. The education personnel trained in the CESAMEs will come from different countries, regions, and continents. So CESAME centers will be intercontinental and multilingual centers. In the center, they will have joint activities with colleagues from different cultures and environments and exchanges about the difficulties and success factors that are encountered in the various places. So they will perform a synthesis between the IBSC knowledge gained in the CESAME sessions and the pedagogical tools they use in their own local and national cultures. In so doing, they will enrich their own culture from the best practices used by other people encountered in these CESAME centers. Now, how will the CESAME project be implemented? The project will start up step after step and progress in phases. So during the initial phase, 2 years, the opening of 3 CESAMEs could be planned, 1 in Europe and 2 in Africa. They will also help the launching of other new CESAMEs. Another crucial mission will be to develop adequate online tools, as said by many persons at this meeting. Right from this initial phase, the CESAME centers should be connected to one another, to each other. And during the second phase, after 2 years, it should initiate the true building up of a network of all CESAME centers. So, in conclusion, the establishment of CESAME Center will rely entirely upon the availability of a suitable site located in a scientifically active environment offered at no cost by a local institution. And negotiations with 7 institutions are in due course now. And these CESAMEs will be proposed to political authorities and sponsors after this Paris AEMASE 3 conference. And specific agreements will thus have to be signed between each CESAME center and the national ministries of education. Tomorrow at 8:45, 3 proposals to host a CESAME will be presented. And this is how we hope to start on the road to improving the quality of science education for all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, this, yes, I think you can come back. You've, a quick reaction.
J'y vais. It works. Martin Adler, mathematician. I would like to ask a question or maybe make one comment. Where do you place mathematics in CESAME? Because if you speak English, mathematics is not really part of science. And if you speak French, mathematics is part of science. And so where do you, or maybe a comment that, and that was the decision made by la Fondation La Main à la Pâte a few years ago to include mathematics in its scope.
Mathematics is included in CESAME Center.
is a mathematician.
So,
Yeah, okay. So another quick comment from anyone else?
My name is Aïssatou Yaye from Niger. I have a short question. I think I didn't hear anything about the budget for these centers and who is going to sponsor it.
okay. Tomorrow we'll discuss about the budget for each center.
And you said something about proposals for funding it by agencies.
Yeah,
The last
tomorrow.
2 slides.
Yeah.
Give just a little answer. In the sessions that will be delivered, there will be these international sessions with people coming from far away, and then replication for local people. So it means that funding should also come from local places, and also, of course, by international instances and donors.
Sorry. Is IAP either partnership or IAP for science, is it involved at this stage in formulation of your plan?
Tomorrow I will say more again, but we are under a kind of a global supervision of IAP. Peter McGrath knows everything, is involved in the steering committee and is giving guidelines, and of course we need IAP very, very much.
The reason why I asked is the IAP Partnership Board is going to meet in Berlin in middle of October, but I didn't see much in the agenda. That's why I asked you this question.
Well, I think maybe it's early, we can discuss it tomorrow, but have you thought about the relationship between CESAME, the future ones, and the present situation in each country? In other words, with, for example, the Ministry of Education, the universities, the faculties of education, the so-called École Normale Supérieure. Is it something superimposed on what exists, or is it something which fits within the system? And because you said no local cost, no local cost. If there is no local cost, it should be within something existing. Because if it is an extra cost, it's a burden over the country, unless you see something private, but this is a different thing. We are working within a public system, education system, which is rather complex and which has nitty-gritties. So I think from what I have seen, what you have explained, what is lacking is what is the relationship between any kind of CESAME and the present education system in place, whether it is good or bad regarding science. What should be is it, because I can't understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. CESAME Center will be negotiated with local authorities, and the existing centers, universities, schools, or training centers will be involved. So all countries applying for the establishment of a CESAME center should prove the necessity of interaction between local authorities, existing training school with the CESAME centers. And it is very, very important to take into account local needs and try to, during the exchange of best practices, to improve the existing.
Yes.
So tomorrow,
Quickly, the last comment
Yes.
on this.
Wafas Kali, France and Morocco. My question is in the line of the previous one. You insisted on a real need to mix between top-down and bottom-up approaches. And for CESAME centers, how do you apply this mixing between top-down and bottom-up? Should we think of CESAME approach or CESAME centers? Does it need to be in one country, one big center in one place, or should it be some approach to get efficient bottom-up initiatives?
I think before, a lot of these questions are coming because this is just what I feel. Tomorrow morning at 8:45, there's going to be a lot more discussion on this. I think many of the answers will come out. And my first gut feeling, even as the question there, is because the centers, he had mentioned maybe one in Europe and two in Africa, but in Europe where you have so many things already in place, I don't want to run and say the CESAME centers may be probably more valuable, urgent, or what in Africa, where in many countries really nothing like that exists and the systems in place are grossly inefficient. But I think perhaps we should defer the discussion till we hear more about the proposal, the premises, because these are the things that will come up tomorrow. And then even the funding that had been asked. And if you look at, just a brief look at tomorrow's program, most of the key people from various places, IAP and so on, are going to speak briefly on that. So,
well, I think it is very good that these questions are raised today.
yeah.
Because conference, there is time today, tonight, to think about it, to discuss in the corridors is very, very important. So thank you for the questions. Thank you very much.